Want help to grow your business? Download Bryn, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit bryn.ai or search the App Store today.
Welcome to Grow Your Business. My name's Margot Cairns, and the episode today is how to stay sane in the midst of digital disruption. Over the last few years, I've been developing an online program called 12 Steps for Business, and it's based on my several decades working with the boards and top teams of global corporations. And my particular interest is very rapid change. And if there's one thing that's true about digital disruption is it brings very rapid change. Over the next 10 years, 40 to 70% of us are going to lose our jobs. The machines that are coming through now, the artificial intelligence that's coming through is so spectacular. They're thinking by the year 2040, a $1,000 computer will have the computational capacity of the entire human race. So here we are in digital disruption, and I suggest that we either be the disruptor or be disrupted. Of course, disruption has already happened. The world's largest taxi company owns no taxis. The world's largest accommodation provider owns no real estate. The world's largest phone company owns no telco infrastructure. The world's most valuable retailer has no inventory. And the world's most popular media creator creates no content. Of course, we're looking at Uber, Airbnb, Alibaba and Facebook. The world is changing, and it's changing very fast, and we need to change with it. Charles Darwin told us, it's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the most responsive to change. And this is true whether you're a little company or a big company. Nobody is too big or too small to fail. So that we know that those who are too slow to change disappear. Kodak, Nokia, household names. By 2025, 40% of today's Fortune 500 companies will go too. And if you're in a small high-tech company, you might think, well, that's got nothing to do with me. I'm fine. I'm already part of this digital disruption. But I have a son-in-law, actually, who started off selling sandwiches online, and he now is an owner of, or part owner of, a multi-billion-dollar high-tech technical banking company, finance company. And he says, but Margot, we're the most susceptible to change. When he started his business, it's called InLoop, he said we just had computers, and then people wanted apps on their mobile phones. And now those apps are changing, and I come up with an app one day and somebody else has come up with a new app the following day. The barriers to entry for a high-tech company are much lower than they are for a traditional company. And what this means is we have to be constantly looking, constantly thinking, constantly looking for new competitors that we haven't thought of, technology that hasn't been invented yet, paradigm shifting ideas, constantly thinking outside of what we know, constantly thinking outside of the box, constantly knowing or thinking about things that we can't possibly know. They're called the unknown unknowns. I was at the World Economic Forum some years ago, and they kept talking about black swans. And black swans to them meant something that was an unknown unknown. Of course, I come from Australia, and in Australia we have black swans everywhere, so I didn't really know what they were talking about. But what they mean is things we just can't see, whether they're opportunities or threats, they come out of left field and suddenly the world has changed. So the really important thing about this is we can't be a victim to this. We have to make this change our friend. You know, I live in a seaside place called Byron Bay. And pretty much in Byron Bay, we're all yoga teachers and we all surf. So for us, change is like a wave. You don't stand on the shore saying, please don't come here or please don't splash there. You get your board and you go out past the wave and you get on it and you have a lot of fun. And change is like that. But to be like that, we have to raise our consciousness. And we also have to raise the consciousness of those around us. And that's a challenge. You see, our brains don't like change. So in the middle of change, we're not built for change. We're built to be cavemen. You know, the most scary thing that might happen is a tiger would come along, you know, and that would disrupt our little world. Maybe our normal hunting pattern or normal gathering pattern would be disrupted. The rate of change that we're now seeing is exponential. And the only thing you need to know about change is it's going to speed up. Now, our brains are not designed to cope with this at all, and I'd like to explain to you why that is so. What we're going to look at is the brain is actually what we call a triune brain. So it has three key parts. And the first part to develop is this part down here, which is along the spinal cord, and it's called the reptilian brain, or the old brain. And the old brain really only understands fear. And when we go into fear, we only have one of three options. We can go into fight, you know, back to tiger, we go out and fight the tiger. Flight, run as fast as hopefully that we can outrun the tiger. Or freeze. Maybe if I'm really, really still, the tiger won't see us. So in times of change, we still do that. And I remember during the GFC, a large number of managing directors rang me up and said, will you come and work with our boards? And I said, why? They said, we want them to make a decision. We don't care what decision they make, we just want them to make a decision. With the amount of change that was happening, even the best leaders in the land had gone into freeze. So that's the first bit, is this reptilian brain. And then the next bit to develop was what we call the mammalian brain, or the limbic system. And that's all about relationship and emotion. So as we were developing as humans, we started to live together in community, and we had to relate to each other, because it's much easier if there's 3 or 4 of you trying to kill a tiger than just one. And this is an incredibly important part of us, because as we go through change, that ability to stabilise our emotions and build our relationships are key tools to dealing with this incredibly chaotic change that's upon us. And then the next part of the brain is called the neocortex, and that part of the brain is our strategic reasoning part of the brain. So that's the part that can actually think through the issues and come up with the new way forward. So when the limbic system and the neocortex are working together, we call that limbic resonance. And when the brain's in limbic resonance, we call it wise brain, because we can stabilise our emotions, we can work our relationships, and we can think through the issues. Clearly the place we need to be. However, it's the place we very rarely are. So how does the brain decide where to send a message? So a message might come up. It might be something from the external environment. It might be an emotion or a feeling that just comes up from inside. You know, you might walk into a meeting and suddenly, I don't feel comfortable here. Or you might read something in the newspaper, or something might come through the internet and you go, oh. So the first message that comes in, every message that comes in, goes first to this thing called the thalamus. And the thalamus is a very, very small part of the limbic system, just tiny. We can't really see it very easily. And the message goes up into the thalamus, and the thalamus decides in a nanosecond, below our conscious reasoning, am I somewhere, or am I in a situation, or is what is happening, is it safe? Is it familiar? Is it authentic? Now, because we're in a time of very rapid change, because a lot of people are in fear, we are very rarely in a situation that feels safe, familiar and authentic. So if it does feel safe, familiar and authentic, up we go into the wise brain, and we can cope really comfortably and adequately with the situation. If it doesn't go up, if we don't think it's safe, familiar or authentic, whoosh, down into the reptilian brain, into fear, freeze, fight or flight. I would suggest to you that most people, most of the time, are in their reptilian brain. So most people, most of the time, are in freeze, fight or flight, which is the most dangerous place for us to be in times of change. So the World Health Organization now tells us that every year 800,000 people commit suicide. This is more than the number of people that are killed by natural disasters or by terrorism. In other words, we go crazy. And when we're crazy, we do really crazy things. We don't want to be crazy, and we don't want our businesses to be crazy, and we don't want to have people working for us that are crazy. The ABC every year has a week on mental health, and last year the advertisement was telling us that 1 in 2 Australians suffer from mental illness at some stage in their life. The World Health Organization tells us that there is a pandemic of depression, anxiety and addiction already building in the developed world as people simply cannot cope with the change. Now, there is a little trick here. There is something that we can do to help ourselves. There's a number of things, but the one that I want to talk about right now is called Build a Container. And we actually can build into our brain a situational fear.
To continue enjoying this presentation, download Bryn, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit Bryn.ai or search the App Store today.